And before we really jump in, would anyone be willing to step in and, I know we haven't done elections officially, but be the acting chair for this evening? And if not, I can step in. It's just typically staff is supporting and just doing more of the admin side of things, but I wanted to ask for a volunteer first.
Well, I would, but did you get my email that says you're scraping the bottom of the barrel?
Well, I appreciate you volunteering, and I'd love that, Jimmy. And what I can do is just if you can call the meeting to order, I will read the language I have about virtual meetings.
Is that the okay to do it?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. We don't have what do they call the court jester, the choir? I mean, the crier. Hear ye, the court is now in session. Okay, I hereby declare this session of the CAC meeting February 11th in order, and we'll have a report.
Right. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Emergency Ordinance number 20-A16, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are, and I'm going to read your names from our roster, and if you can just say here when you hear your name, so unmute yourself and say that, and then we will have that for Bill as the secretary. Janelle Cockrell.
Here.
James Dean.
Here.
Sue Friedman.
Good. Here.
Thank you. Tony, I always say your last name. I need to work on it. I'm sorry.
It's Pagnucco. Here.
Pagnucco. Tony Pagnucco, thank you. And that is our list of current members. And I do not believe Commissioner Claiborne and Supervisor Lepisto currently are here this evening. There is a little bit more language I'll read. The persons responsible for receiving public comment are the Places29 North Community Advisory Committee, and the opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. Please note that the chat is disabled. If you send something in the chat box, this is sent to the meeting administrator, which is Carolyn Schaefer, who's on the call to support us. To ask a question or share a comment, if you can use the raise hand feature on the screen. And the staff that are present at the meeting are myself, Michaela Accardi, Senior Planner in Community Development. We have Stacy Pethia here, who's a Principal Planner, Principal Housing Planner for Albemarle County. And we also have Carolyn Schaefer here with Community Development as well. And I will pass it back to you, Jimmy, for committee business. The next item we have is adopting the meeting minutes.
The minutes of the meeting, previous meeting. Well, hello there.
Hi.
Did you get snowed out?
Yes, I had a little slight delay, but I'm here now, so happy to be here.
Great.
And
Michaela,
welcome to Sue.
Oh. Sue, are you there?
I am most definitely here.
Oh, did you hear that nice welcome?
I did.
Oh.
I appreciate it. Thank you, B.
Welcome.
Michaela, can we have the minutes of the last meeting that you have?
Yes, I will share my screen. They're pretty brief, but we could also, if you all would like more time to review, you could vote on them during the next meeting as well. So what would your preference be?
I don't have a preference.
Here are Bill's minutes. I'll zoom in. give you all a minute to review. Tony, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Well, I vote to approve those. I don't think there's much to review.
All right. I believe the next action is if someone would like to second that.
I second that motion.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so we can all see each other, and I can switch over to go through and call each person's name. And after I read your name, if you could just, Carolyn, what would the best response for this be? Carolyn's my go-to for.
Just call their name and they're going to say yes or no. That's all they have to do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Janelle Cockrell,
Yes.
James Dean,
Yes.
Sue Friedman,
Abstain since I wasn't here.
Bill McLaughlin,
Yes, I noticed I misspelled Tony's name, and I'll correct that. In one instance, I will correct that. But yes.
Tony Pagnuco,
Yes,
and that is everyone. That is our the group's administrative business. So if you all would like to do any introductions, please feel free. Otherwise, the next item would be the Albemarle County draft housing policy with Stacy.
If you all are agreeable, you don't have to give me all the wonderful things you've contributed in the past, but as a new member, I would really appreciate learning a little bit about the other members.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead, Jimmy?
Yes. Oh, I will introduce myself. My name is Jimmy Dean. Live out on Prophet Road. I'm a retired lineman from Virginia Power, 39 years. And now I am volunteering with two food banks in the area. My hobbies are gardening and chopping wood. I have a character flaw that you ought to know about. I consider myself frugal and conservative. My wife says I'm just cheap, but I've learned to live with that. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Okay. Bill McLaughlin. I'm resident of Hollymead subdivision, which is kind of surrounded by Forest Lakes. I'm also on the board of the Hollymead Board of Directors. And I think I got interested in this committee as a result of a development that was being proposed on Route 29 and Ashwood Boulevard, and started to look into ways that we could provide some input to the county. So that's why I joined the committee, I think in, I guess, November, somewhere around then. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess I'll go unless Tony wants to go next.
oh, go ahead. Ladies first.
Janelle Cockrell. I live in Riverwood, so like right in front of Briarwood, across from Injic. I also just joined in November. I think all of us are new, so you've only missed what, 2 meetings? So B twisted my arm. No, I'm sorry. But was looking for people to kind of get involved and give back. And I'm definitely interested in what's going on in the county and my surrounding area with all of the construction and new development that is going on around here. So I got involved.
And Janelle, tell them your profession.
I never usually tell people what I do. So no, I work for a Merck pharmaceutical company out in Elkton, Virginia. So I manufacture medicine.
Chemical engineer, I think, right?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Keep making that medicine.
We're trying.
My next?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Tony Panuco. My wife and I moved to Summer Chase neighborhood, in December of 2011. We were originally from upstate New York. We wanted to move to a college town. It was either going to be Charlottesville or Chapel Hill. We decided on Chapel Hill. It was closer to our kids who live in Maryland, 2 different places in Maryland. We're very happy down here. Actually, Bill not recruited me, but Bill kind of got my interest going in joining this committee. I somehow got in touch with B, or B got in touch with me. I don't know what. I'm happy to be on the committee. I have an open mind about development. I really don't know too much about it. That's why I'm on the committee, to learn. And so far, I'm very happy to be on the committee.
Great.
Oh, and I'm a retired school administrator.
Thank you. And I will just say I'm in Forest Lakes, surrounding you, Bill. And I actually think, Bill, you look familiar. I just left about an 11-year term on the Forest Lakes Homeowners Association board. So
Okay.
I know we had worked with Hollymead on a number of issues, including the lakes, of course.
Yeah.
And then Jimmy, I don't know if you remember, but when I ran for school board back in 2002, I visited your house as part of my campaign.
I remember.
I do remember meeting you then. So I've been in Forest Lakes since 1999. Came from Austin, Texas.
Oh,
And I'm still employed, work downtown at the Jefferson School, the former African-American school, which is now a robust community center in downtown Charlottesville.
thank you.
I guess I'll go. I'm Bela Pistol Kirtley. I'm the board liaison, so supervisor from the Rivanna district. I've been here, pardon me, 14 years now. And before that, California, I was a teacher, principal, and director, in charge of 24 elementary schools. When I retired, I also spent 20 plus years in politics out in California. So I had a real job, and then I also had a lot of volunteering. I don't know, but I love it. I love getting things done. That's my mantra. And recruiting people.
Okay,
She's good at that.
sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll just say quickly, mostly for Sue, that I'm Michaela Cardi. I am the CAC staff liaison. And in addition to working with Places29 North and Places29 Hydraulic, I work on our long-range planning team. And I'll go ahead, if it's all right with this group, I think we can transition to Stacy's presentation about the draft housing policy. So Stacy, if you could introduce yourself and feel free to share your screen.
Sure. My name is Stacy Pethia, and I am the principal planner for housing for Albemarle County. I've been with the county since December 2018. Prior to that, I was the housing program coordinator for the city of Charlottesville. And so one of the first things I did when I came to the county after I tried to figure out how they work differently from the city is I'm trying to find the share screen. There we go. There was a housing needs assessment report that was done for the region. So the city had done one initially, and then the Thomas Jefferson Planning Commission District did one for the rest of the planning district region. So that included Albemarle County, Greene County, Nelson County, Louisa, and I feel like I'm missing somebody, Nelson County. And that really showed, the idea was to understand what the housing market was like. And that led to the creation of a new draft housing policy, which I will go through tonight. Just a real quick timeline. The current housing policy that the county has was created in 2004 by a stakeholder committee, and that was adopted into the comprehensive plan as an amendment to that plan in 2004. It did get updated slightly. I think some typographical errors were changed in 2015 with that comprehensive plan review. Then, as I said, in April 2019, the Planning District Commission released a regional housing study that looked at housing needs throughout our region. And then in July 2019, I went before the Planning Commission with a recommendation to use the data from that report to update the current housing policy for the county. And they did approve that. And so then starting in October through December of 2019, staff went out and did community outreach. And we did a number of different activities, which I will go over briefly in a couple slides. After the community outreach period ended, I worked with a group of a stakeholder committee made up of a number of different community members. They reviewed all of the data, and they are the ones that came up with the recommendations for the new housing policy. I held a work session with the Planning Commission in August of last year, and then with the Board of Supervisors in October. And then we held a joint work session with both the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission in December. All of those comments have been incorporated into the plan as it currently is, and it is out for public comment right now until Monday, the 15th. Once that closes, I will take all of that data, the feedback that's collected through there, review it and finalize that draft policy. And then we are scheduled to take that to the Board of Supervisors on March 17th for a public hearing. And hopefully, fingers crossed, adoption of the policy. There are really four major reasons that coming out of that housing needs assessment that led us to decide to update the policy. The first is that Albemarle County's population is growing, and it's expected to grow by 26% between now and the year 2040. And to meet that increased need in housing with that population growth, it's estimated the county will need to add just under 12,000 additional housing units. And so that's to meet the need for everybody that is going to be moving here. The housing needs assessment also highlighted that there are more than 10,000 households who pay more than 30% of their income for their housing. And those households are considered to be housing cost burdened. The federal government recommends you spend about 30% of housing of your income on housing, and that would cover your rent or mortgage payments, insurance, taxes, property taxes, and utilities. Almost half of those households that pay too much actually pay half of their income or more for their housing, which really decreases the amount of money that they have to spend on other things like food and transportation. You hear sometimes about seniors who are on fixed incomes and they cut back on their medication or they will stretch it out over a longer period of time because they don't have the money to pay for everything that they need. And so the housing policy presents some recommendations on how to potentially fix that problem. There's also household needs are changing. Again, going back to seniors, the senior population is expected to increase by 27% over the next 20 years. There's really a lack of accessible units that are really helpful, appropriate for seniors who, as we all get older, many of us end up with mobility issues. And so we lack units that have the grab bars in the bathrooms or don't have steps to get in out of the homes. And so we need to look at how to increase those units. There has also been a lack of smaller sized units, so 1 and 2 bedrooms. And also really thinking about the fact that as we age, we're really now looking to stay in our homes as long as we can. We don't want to have to move out of the home that we've lived in for decades. And so how do we address those desires? And it's also looking at, excuse me, homelessness population. We currently have, well, in 2019, the last full count, identified 165 persons who were experiencing homelessness on that one night. But given the job losses during the current pandemic, there is concern that those numbers may increase significantly once all of those eviction moratoriums are lifted. And then looking at persons who have disabilities, there's more than 9,000 county residents who have some sort of disability. And approximately 19% of those are actually working and living in poverty. So that's about 4,100 individuals who are working that have some sort of disability and they are living in poverty. So how do we work to help those households? So I talked about community input. The community meeting started, we had 3 community meetings in October. Excuse me, those were held at the county office building. Invited residents to come in and we had the 3 sessions. The first one, we really talked about what affordable housing is and what the housing needs are in the county. The second one was an opportunity for residents in the meetings to tell us about their housing needs and experiences. And the third meeting was for all of us to work together to really begin to brainstorm some ideas of what we would like housing to look like in the county moving forward. Understanding that a lot of county residents are unable to attend meetings at certain times, or they may be uncomfortable joining those meetings. I worked with a variety of nonprofits in the area, such as Habitat and Piedmont Housing Alliance. I worked with JABA to set up focus groups with the families that they serve, individuals and families. And that really gave me a great deal of information about lower income residents and moderate income residents and how they struggle with housing that they can afford. We also provided opportunities for residents to provide online feedback. We heard a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the most prominent things that we heard over and over again is that housing is just too expensive for many county residents. And so that forces them to move farther away, whether that's from the jobs or the friends or the families. I heard a lot from seniors and persons with disabilities that they struggle to find housing that's accessible. And we also heard that we really wanted to protect our existing older neighborhoods and the housing that is in them. And I won't go through all of those. And so, as I said, I worked with the stakeholder committee. There were 9 members on that committee, and they represented senior citizens, residential developers. We had a major local employer in there. The interfaith movement promoting action together or impact was represented. The Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership. We had representatives from low-income households. We also had someone representing the homeless community, homeowners, and we also had someone from the city of Charlottesville that worked on that committee. The idea being that really we all need to work together to tackle this problem, and so that's a good way for us to start that process. So they met together between November and February, November 2019 and February 2020. And they are the ones that really brainstormed and went out and did the best practice research and came up with the 12 broad policy objectives in the housing policy. And there are 39 strategies that are associated with those. Excuse me. The draft policy continues to support the county vision and the housing goal. That has not changed. And as I said, there are 12 strategies, 12 objectives and 39 strategies, and I'm not going to go through all of those tonight, but all of those fit within 7 broad categories that you see here. So really looking at our overall housing supply to make sure that we can meet the housing needs of that increasing population growth over the next 20 years. Increasing the supply of affordable and workforce housing, preserving our existing housing units and communities, increasing in community engagement within the housing field to make sure that we are responsive to the community needs, making sure fair housing and community equity issues are addressed, homelessness and special populations, and really increasing the sustainability of our communities. Now, I'm not going to talk about all 39 strategies either. What I'm going to do is just highlight some of the main ones that the stakeholder committee felt were really important. And so the first is redefining the way we talk about affordable housing and introducing a new category of workforce housing. Currently, affordable housing in our current policy is defined as housing that costs no more than 30% of a household income, which is great, but that's really hard to work with and to track. That would mean that everybody paid a different price for their housing. And that's really difficult for homeowners who are trying to sell their home to find a price. I mean, they have to sell for a different price for everybody. And for landlords setting the rent. So this would really look at defining affordable rental housing as housing that is reserved for households making incomes no greater than, this should be 60% area median income, not 80. I'm sorry about that, my typo. And that would set the price limit. I'm sorry, this is the current definition. It really sets the price limit at the federal fair market rents, which they use for federal rental assistance programs like the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And affordable for sale housing, again, is reserved for households with incomes at 80% area median income. And the price limit, so the maximum sale price is set at $243,750. That's tied to Virginia Housing's first time home buyer program maximum sale price limit, and that's 65% of that. So it changes, but that number has stayed steady for the last several years. So the stakeholder committee really wanted to try to bring those prices more in line with what households currently earn. And so for affordable housing, and looking at renter occupied housing, that would be reserved for households with incomes no greater than 60% AMI. And currently our area median income is $93,900 a year. And the rents would be set as a percentage of that 60% figure. So it makes it really close to what those numbers are now, but they're slightly lower. The higher the bedroom numbers get, the lower that maximum rent is, and it really makes it easier for lower income families to afford to pay rent. For owner occupied households, those would be reserved for households with incomes at 80% of AMI or less. And it would just tie that maximum sale price to a different program, federal program. And all of your faces are in the middle of my screen and I can't see the bottom of it. So give me 1 second. So it would set the maximum sale price below $200,000. And it would really make it easier for families with incomes at say 50% area median income to be able to move into home ownership opportunities. The stakeholder committee really felt it was important also there's this group of people with incomes who make too much to actually qualify for federal assistance, whether it's home ownership or rental, but they make too little to afford market rate housing. So they felt it was important to create this workforce housing category, which household incomes would go between 60% AMI and 120% AMI, and that would qualify for rental opportunities. And those would be set at 110% of the federal fair market rent, so slightly above what our maximum rent is now for affordable housing. It would also tie the sale price to the same program, but for new construction instead of existing housing, and that would place that for sale maximum sale price around $215,000. So again, that makes it a lot easier for lower income families to move into home ownership. Just as an example, there were 4 affordable housing units built within the city, home ownership opportunities, and they sold for about $215,000 a piece. I know that at least one of the families that purchased one of those units is a teacher, and their income is at that 50% area median income mark. And that was the first time they'd been able to purchase a home. Looking at key strategies for the preservation of existing housing and communities. One of the recommendations is to work with owners of what we call naturally occurring affordable housing to preserve some or all of those units as affordable. And naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAHs, are those housing units that are older. And we generally think of them in terms of apartment buildings. So they would be apartment buildings that maybe were built 50 years ago, and they just don't command the same market rate rent as newer units do. And they are often targets for investors coming in, purchasing them, and then redoing the entire thing and bringing it up to higher standards and market rates. So we'll be really working with owners of those buildings to, if they do renovate, to save some of those units as affordable. Looking at the feasibility of creating rental inspection districts, and these would be attached to specific neighborhoods selected on specific sets of housing data that the state says we need to look at. And it would be a way for us to really proactively address any housing issues. So again, it would be looking at neighborhoods with a stock of older rental housing and just working proactively with the owners to make sure that they are kept up to building standards and don't fall into disrepair. There's a number of different ways to set those up. They generally work with annual inspections, with working in different things. So if it's a new building that we know the county has just inspected, then we can let that, skip inspections for 5 years. And we would work with the rental community to figure out how to make that work. And then also the committee felt that we should really begin collecting data on neighborhoods and looking at how they change over time. And so that could, looking at that data, could highlight neighborhoods that may be sliding into decline and catching them before they get too far, or identifying neighbors that are really on the neighborhoods on the upswing, and then working to make sure that we can preserve some affordable housing units in there. Excuse me. The stakeholder committee also highlighted, or it's really recommending creating an affordable dwelling unit program, and this would need to be done through an ordinance. And it is similar to the way the proffer system works now. The difference is that proffers are not required. They're really things that the developer offers in exchange. So we cannot require a developer to proffer 15% affordable housing through a rezoning. An affordable dwelling unit program would make that a mandatory requirement. So it would be mandatory when someone came in for a rezoning that they would provide a percentage of those units as affordable housing. We could also say you could do the units or pay a fee. So we really need to work out the details in those. And there are several examples across the state, good ones that we could work from. The county could also, in that program, have the option to purchase up to 2/3 of the affordable for sale units right off the bat. So it would still work as it does now, the proffers do now, where the developer would advertise the units, for sale units for say 90 days at the affordable rate. If they don't find an income qualifying buyer, then they can sell those units at market rate. That would not change. What would change is that the county would have the option to go in when the developer notifies us that they have, say, 10 for sale units ready to go on the market that are affordable. The county could then come in and say, well, we want to purchase, 2/3 of those units and keep them in a permanent affordable stock. It would also allow the county to set affordability periods for those units and to set resale prices. And those resale prices would be done in such a way that the buyers would still earn equity through those homes. They just would not be able to live in it for a year and then turn around and sell it for, if they purchased it for $200,000, they couldn't turn around a year later and sell it for $500,000. There would be some equity sharing, so that we've made sure that those units were affordable for the next buyers. Looking at fair housing and community equity, the stakeholder committee highlighted 2 tools that they thought the county could really implement. One is an equity evaluation tool, and that would really be used to look at, as different proposals came in, whether they were for development proposals or new programs or policies, we would use this tool to determine whether or not that project or policy or program was going to further the equity goals that the county has set. And it's really designed to help protect against any unintentional discriminatory impact on the protected classes. Because sometimes we as professionals go in and we think we're doing the right thing, but there could be unintended side effects that we don't understand or have not thought about. And this would help highlight those to make sure that we don't cause any negative side effects. And then also affordable housing impact statements. And these are really similar to environmental or economic impact statements, really focus on housing. This tool would really be for internal purposes only. They would not be used to deny or approve any development projects that came forward. It's really just for the county to really keep track of where affordable housing is being built and seeing how our programs and policies are working. We've developed an implementation plan, and it's really designed to go every 5 to 6 years. So the first one is 6 years. The stakeholder committee felt that staff may need some time to get things up and running, so they gave us an extra year to do that. And they identified these 6 strategies here as the ones that they felt were most important. So there's exploring options with county-owned land to develop a permanent affordable housing community. That actually came out of the joint work session with the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission in December. There's also a recommendation to prioritize creating a package of developer incentives to encourage developers to produce affordable rental housing. Excuse me. Again, develop that affordable dwelling unit program. Implement a sustainable housing trust fund, and that would look at finding dedicated sources of revenue for that or outside sources of revenue to build that up, and then we could run it as a revolving loan fund so that it was self-sustaining. Establishing a housing advisory committee to help evaluate the way the programs and policies are working over time. And really to work with public, private, nonprofit partners to expand permanent housing opportunities for chronically homeless households. They identified a number of metrics that they felt that we should track. I will say this will probably grow over time. This was very general. And my guess is as programs are coming online and being developed, we would expand on the types of data that we track. So they'd be very program specific. Excuse me. And so next steps, as I said, the public comment period is now open and that runs through Monday. It's being done on public input platform and the link is here, but I think Michaela may have sent that around earlier and I can put that in the chat or we can email it. And then the public hearing with the board is scheduled on March 17th. And I know that was pretty quick, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Oh.
Phil, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, well, Michaela and Stacy knew I sent out quite a number of comments and questions on this whole plan. And I'm not going to go through all of them tonight, but if it's okay, I'll send them out to everybody else on the committee. And just a lot of them were coming from the concern about the health of the people that are going to be living in these developments in terms of how much density are we going to trade for low-income housing. And I'm wondering if we get too much density, do we have housing areas, housing developments that aren't really good for anybody to live in, whether they're low income or not? And I was, I think the first thing I said was that this whole plan is running up against, to me, the current way the county is looking at development in terms of 95% of the land is to remain out of the development area and only 5% in the development area. So everything we're developing in this, like this, is within 5% of the land in the county. And that total is 35 square miles. And I don't know how much of that 35 square miles is left. And I'm not advocating, you know, a 50-50 split or anything close to that, but I just felt like the 95 versus 5 really hems us in as far as the options that we have. And I don't know. I don't know if that can be loosened up or not, but I just felt like it's almost like we're tinkering around the edges there with the little bit of land that we're dealing with. And the other thing I kind of noticed was that there seemed to be a 50-50 emphasis on rental versus home ownership. And, you know, I guess traditionally we always thought of home ownership as being overall better for the community. And the promoting of home ownership was not even listed as one of the priorities. And I'm wondering if we should maybe put a little more emphasis on that. And as far as affordability is concerned, you know, maybe looking at the one of the barriers to home ownership for people that are not necessarily in the very low income brackets, but meaning close to median, is that they could possibly afford the payments, but they don't have the savings to afford a down payment. So is there any way we can do something about that in terms of working with local financial institutions, that sort of thing? You know, personally, I mean, the first home that I bought, if it wasn't for the Veterans Administration, I would not have been able to buy that home because I didn't have a down payment, you know? You know, a lot of my comments are also based on the health factors that I think we are seeing come out of this COVID-19 pandemic, in a sense that, you know, people that are able to get out of their houses, get out in the fresh air, you know, private space, you know, it's just a healthier environment. It seems to me like when we look at the problems that, you know, dense urban centers have experienced versus, you know, more rural areas. You know, and I know when I brought this up at another meeting, one of the responses, well, by the time we build this, COVID-19 will be over. So we don't have to worry about that. And, my response is, yeah, if you're going to guarantee that we're going to have a pandemic only once every 100 years, that sounds like a good plan. But I don't know if anybody's going to guarantee that. So I'll send these out, and Stacy has had a quick look at them, and she's going to get back to me with her responses. I'll give her time on that. So that's all I have. I'll let somebody else get the floor here.
Yeah, I've told Bill that I will provide responses to his questions and get those out hopefully early next week. He did have a list, so I want to make sure I answer. No, I mean, they were fantastic comments, so thank you for sending those. I just want to make sure that I give each one the appropriate amount of attention before I send it out.
So I'm sorry. So I would be interested in, I think we got Bill's questions.
Mhm.
So I'd be interested in your responses. Also, I would think one of the inherent problems in dealing with affordable housing is saying to a developer, okay, we would really encourage you to do this, 15% of the units or whatever. And the developer comes back and says, I can do that, but it's going to raise the price of the other units. And there must be a delicate balancing act there, because that developer may be concerned about selling the other units at an elevated price. But I guess it's so far, it's been working out because development seems to be increasing like the daylights here. Not where we came from in upstate New York. Development is dead.
Really?
Oh, let me just say this. We just got our assessments back. So the board will decide on a tax rate, but this is such a luxury down here that assessments rise, that counties and taxing organizations can raise more money without raising the tax rate.
Mhm.
This is not what happens in other parts of the country. So apparently this has not been an impediment so far. So anyway, Stacy, maybe you could just give a general comment concerning that relative to the balancing act.
Absolutely, and you're right, it is a balancing act, because when you're asking developers to they create their budget, their pro forma for their project based on expected revenues that they get from the sale or rental. So asking them to take a cut in that profit is a lot. And so we're really hoping to be able to work with probably pull together stakeholder developers to understand what types of incentives would help them to be able to provide those units. And not just through a rezoning process, but just in general. So they come in and they're going to do a by right development. What can we do for you to help you provide a small number? We're not talking 15, 20%. It could be 1 or 2 units, because the more we collect those 1 or 2 units in every development, the better chances we have of getting those units over the long term. So there's all kinds of different incentives we could provide. There are cities that will look at reducing the number of parking spaces in larger developments, not generally single family developments. particularly if they're along transit corridors. So if they're really near the bus stops or the bike lanes, then people would be more encouraged to not drive, and so you could reduce those parking spaces. And I think there was a study done in Portland that said reducing the number of required parking spaces by X amount really brought down the rents and where they studied by 11%. So that's a big drop in rent. Maybe looking at, excuse me, reducing how far back the buildings need to be set from the road, or looking at potentially looking at our fee structure and could we reduce fees or do a percentage of fees reduction for affordable units. And then so it's really looking at a variety of different things that we could all package together, and then allow developers to pick and choose which combination of those would work best for their project. I don't want to deny developers the ability to make money. That's not my goal. I do want to find that nice balance between how do we make sure that people who want to live here can, and how do developers build the product that they want to build.
Thank you.
It seems to me, I think Tony and Bill both somewhat alluded to this, there's a connection to wages and to jobs that are not hospitality, tourism, and retail. And if we can decrease house prices, and we can look at what strategies might be connected to that would increase higher paying job opportunities. You know, I'm interested, Janelle lives here and she works in Elkton. A lot of people live in Waynesboro and work in Albemarle County. And so I think the housing issues are, to me, very concerning, very startling. I think the detail of 10,000 households paying more than 30% of their take-home income on housing is bad. That's not a good thing for individuals, and it's not a good thing for the county economy either. So maybe we need to look at the real big picture when it comes to housing, and really look at how do we try to increase employment options for folks, as well as how do we decrease housing.
I agree. I didn't know how to put that in a housing policy. There is recognition among, particularly one of the reasons that the gentleman who is representing the local employer agreed to be on that stakeholder committee is because he sees the connection between his inability to attract employees and keep them because they keep having to move further away. So there is that recognition there. The state has highlighted that in some of their studies and that have come out. So it's really finding the way this sort of, we need to have housing to get people here before you can attract. It's one of those, which comes first? You build the house to get the employees, or do you have the jobs to get the, so, you know, it's going to have to work together somehow. I totally agree with you.
Well, let me ask a couple of questions. Now, y'all got to bear with me because I'm just learning a few of the ropes about the operation of the county to start with for the governmental issues. But you mentioned something about county-owned land. Explain that to me.
So the county does own property. I don't know where, to be honest. Most of what I have found has been included in the parks. But out of one of the supervisors during the joint work session in December had pointed out that a developer had proffered a certain number of acres to the county for one of their projects. And it's situated, I believe, on Berkmore Drive somewhere. The idea that she had was to take the bus storage near Jack Jewett Elementary School, and move that bus storage facility over to this Crawford land, and then build housing for teachers and firefighters and police officers around the schools to make it more of a community around the school area. It would really require staff to sit down and go through the inventory of land in the county and figure out what land that the county does own and what is appropriate for potential residential development, and then see what's there. Once we identified things, we would have to figure out what we wanted. There would be a process to go out and figure out, you know, what the community wants to see in that area. Really go out and search for, hopefully, a competitive process where developers would provide proposals for what to build, but really working with the community wherever that land is located to make sure that whatever is built there is what makes everybody happy.
Well, let me ask about profits. Haven't they been declared? The state government kind of clamped down on profits for that the county can use or can benefit from?
I don't know much about the proffer system. Still confuses me. I came from Pennsylvania. We don't do proffers the same way. So I don't have a good answer for that one.
Yeah, I can, Jimmy, I can go ahead and speak to that. We're not allowed to ask for a proffer. So usually a developer will come in, and if they ask for a special use permit or a rezoning, they will offer a proffer in exchange for increased housing to be able to get the special use permit or the rezoning from the Board of Supervisors. So, but we can't say, well, you need to give us this, or you need to give us this much, or, you know, whatever. We cannot do that, but they can offer something, and that's okay. And I will tell you also, to address Bill's issue, if I may, we have two choices in Albemarle County. Either we make full use of our developable area, which probably means eventually going higher in density or going higher in buildings, maybe, you know, multi-story apartment buildings closer to the center of downtown. You don't want to build them out in the middle of nowhere. You want to build them, you know, where people could go shopping, where people can go to the grocery store and things like that nearby. Or you go into the rural areas, which if we crack that nut and go into the rural areas, which may happen eventually, I don't know. But if that happens, we lose Albemarle, in my opinion. You just, you know, I mean, if you keep cutting away. But there are options. So I'm hoping that answers like both your questions. We try to get as much as we can out of a developer when we do allow them to have more density. And frankly, that's the way they're going to make money. If we are requiring 50% of housing to be 80% of AMI, over the last 10 years, we've sold 44 units. Not very good. And it's about, you have to have an annual income of about over $74,000, close to $75,000 to be able to qualify for one of those homes. That excludes our teachers, it excludes our police officers, it excludes our firefighters, a lot of our essential workers, it excludes. So we definitely need another way to have lower rents, lower housing, but that's going to require additional density. And there's just no way to get around that.
Yeah, with regard to proffers, my understanding was that the 2016 law was highly restrictive. It was basically, you couldn't even say the word proffers to a developer, but I thought that had been changed in 2019. No, but I thought that law had been basically changed in 2019 in the last legislative session, giving us more leeway to require reasonable proffers to
Right.
ask
We-
for.
There
Go
was
ahead,
an update
Michaela.
there was an update in 2019, but it is pretty complex. And in the past, when CACs have had questions, we've actually asked our county attorney's office to put something together because it has changed frequently. So I'm not prepared to really comment on
Okay,
the nuance of that. And while
I know.
have, I'll just do a quick time check for everybody that we have about 30 minutes
Okay.
remaining of the meeting and a couple more items. So perhaps we have time for one more question or we can move on.
Okay, I was just going to say regarding the proffers that you're right, we can't ask for them. And remember, if there's a change again in the legislature, they could rip that out again. So that's something that, could change depending on who's in the legislature. So yeah, we're very careful about that. It's the developer that they come in. We can't ask for that.
They sound like legal bribes to me. Is that fair?
Usually they will actually offer a proffer in lieu of 15% affordable housing. And I'll give you an example. Let's say, let's pretend like there's going to be a development of 100 homes at $1 million each. Well, the developer may not want homes of a real like 50% of AMI. So instead of building those homes in this development, they may offer us X number of dollars, and then those dollars go into an affordable housing fund that the county uses. And speaking of affordable housing fund, I know that the group that came in and they were looking at they want a permanent affordable housing trust fund. We want something that the county can control. And I'll tell you why. Let's say we have eventually $10 million in an affordable housing trust fund. Okay, we want to be able to control that. At least I do. Why? Because if there's a natural disaster in our county, I want to be able to access those funds to protect the community. I don't want them tied up like where you can't use them. So there's the difference.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
So now I'll shut up.
That was good. You've taught me some things. Thank you, Dee. There's I know other people had questions, but I also know Michaela has asked me to help move this on to the rest of your agenda. So please feel free to, if you want to send your questions to Michaela, or I will share my email address. Email them to me and I'm happy to respond. And when I respond to Bill's questions and comments, I'll share them with Michaela so she can send them out to everybody and you have those answers too.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you, Stacy. In the interim too, I'll send out Stacy's presentation and the link to the form that you can provide feedback on, and feel free to share that with anyone you know who is a county community member as well. So I'll move us on to a presentation that I'll be providing about development in the area. And a couple of you have already mentioned this this evening, so I know it's a topic of interest. Can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
I see nodding heads, great. So this is an overview presentation of ongoing development projects in the Places 29 North area. And each project that I'll talk about has a dedicated lead reviewer that has all the information on specific site design details and really specific project information. So this is an overview to give all of you an idea of ongoing development. And I may not be able to answer specific site design questions, but I know who to connect you with and how to get the answers, so we can get answers to questions that you might have. And the reason I'm providing this presentation is because we typically provide these types of updates to our CACs twice a year when the development dashboards, the online tool that I shared with you all last month, when these are updated. And I wanted to make sure to share this with you all since everyone is a new member to a CAC, and hopefully this will provide some context about development that's happening in the North area. And most of you have seen this slide with an overview of the development process in Albemarle County. And I'll just highlight that again, the first two phases that you see in this diagram that have the dotted lines reflect projects that are what are called undergoing legislative review, meaning that someone is applying to do something that's not currently permitted under their zoning district or is listed as one of the special uses, whereas there's a solid line to the right of your screen that reflects projects who applicants are trying to develop something that they're already permitted to do under their zoning district. And I'm going to focus tonight's presentation on legislative review projects that require Board of Supervisors approval, as well as those that are being reviewed by staff through the site design review process. And as a reminder, all of the projects that I'll share information about are in various stages of the development review process. After a project is submitted, typically to site design review, it's a couple of years in most cases before it breaks ground and you see it undergo construction. So not all of these projects are really happening at the same time. Not all the dirt will be moved at the same time. So again, legislative review, when I use that term, I'm referring to special use permits and rezonings. You'll see at the beginning of a project number, SP stands for special use permits, and ZMAs is a zoning map amendment or rezoning. In the process for these types of projects, when a property owner is seeking to change the zoning district of their property or develop a use that's listed as a special use, again, Board of Supervisors approval is required. And this follows a specific public process, including a community meeting, public hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. County staff, along with other local agencies, compile a staff report for the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to review alongside the public input. And community meetings occur prior to public hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. They're required through the development review process, and surrounding property owners are notified about the meeting and invited to attend, ask questions, and share their feedback on a proposal. A summary of input from this meeting and other feedback shared with staff is summarized in the report that goes to the Planning Commission and the board. And typically CACs host these community meetings when they're in the development area that the CAC represents. But again, this is open to anyone, and surrounding property owners are sent mailed notices. So I'm going to jump in now to projects that are currently under legislative review, meaning this is a project where public input is sought and invited during the public hearing process and the community meetings. So this first legislative application that's pending in the North area is an amendment to the Hollymead Town Center's original rezoning. And it's a proposal to increase the maximum non-residential square footage by 25,000 square feet. And the applicant intends to construct a 40,000 square foot building in the parcel shown in yellow on your screen or with the yellow outline. This project is pending indefinitely as the Planning Commission had a public hearing last June, and staff hasn't had any updates from the applicant since October 2020. So there's no recent movement on this, but you all should know that the next step should the applicant seek to move forward would be to schedule a board public hearing. So I'll let you all know if that comes up, but we haven't had any progress on that front for a few months. And on each of these slides, I have the staff contact. So this is the specific person that is reviewing the application in the planning division, and many other reviewers review these applications, but there's a lead reviewer, and in this case, it's Andy Reidelbach. Another project that is for a special use permit application that was submitted by Rappahannock Electric Cooperative is an application to install extensions on existing power lines to increase their height so they can install new power lines that I know not as much about utilities, but that so they can install 115 kilowatt power lines. And this proposal also includes widening the utility easement to 75 feet in width. There was a Planning Commission public hearing for this project last Tuesday, and the Planning Commission recommended approval with several conditions that are in a staff report that if anyone is interested, I can share. And staff is in the process of scheduling a public hearing with the Board of Supervisors. And I think I already mentioned this, but whenever there's a public hearing for a project, there's an opportunity for community members to attend and share a comment or ask a question. This is a map showing the parcels where the utility lines and the easements would be affected. So you can see that it's about 1.6 miles in length, and it is along Route 29 to the Greene County boundary. And this is a rezoning application that several of you are already aware of. 2027 is the number, and it's RST residences, and several folks I think were on the property owner notices for the community meeting that happened last year. This is an application to rezone 2 properties along Seminole Trail, 2883 and 2885. They're located near the corner of Ashwood Boulevard, and the request is to rezone to a planned residential development. That's a zoning district type with 254 multifamily apartments and 108 townhome units. That's a total of 370 units. 50% of these units are proposed to be designated as affordable, and we just had a pretty lengthy presentation on affordability, and this is, I'm told that this is with the current housing policy of 80% or less of the area median income. And the application includes an associated request to waive step back requirements for the proposed buildings, and I can talk about that in more detail if anyone's interested. I mentioned that a community meeting was held last summer, and just under 160 property owner notices were mailed. Most importantly to note is that there's a Planning Commission public hearing that will be held on Tuesday, March 2nd. And if you would like to provide questions or provide comments or ask questions, you can attend the meeting and participate during the public comment period. You can also send your comments to Andy's email address. And a public hearing is not yet scheduled with the Board of Supervisors. Additionally, I've been sent a website address from the Forest Lakes HOA2 that I've been asked to share as well alongside this project information. So I can do that after this meeting. And this is, again, I'll share this presentation. This is the conceptual plan. And you can see in the green areas, there's amenity space for the development, and then the surrounding multifamily buildings and townhomes on the north side of the property. There is a recently submitted rezoning request, ZMA 2021-1 Willow Glen. And this is a request to amend a previously approved plan that was recently submitted. And this is located on the east side of Dickerson Road, north of the Town Center Boulevard intersection. And it's a request to amend a previously approved plan and change the proposed dwelling units from a mix of residential types to all multifamily units, and to increase the number of dwelling units to 324. And the applicants have requested to host their community meeting at this group's March meeting. So you all will have the opportunity to learn more about this project and have an opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback alongside the property owners, surrounding property owners next month. So My best advice is stay tuned on this project, and there will be the applicant and staff at our next CAC meeting. And this is just a conceptual plan where you can see the buildings that have letters and numbers next to them indicate different unit types. And I will rely on the applicant next month to really dig into the details of this project. So those are all of the legislative review projects, meaning there are community meetings and public hearings that you all are invited to ask questions and provide comments on. This next set of projects are those that are in the site design review phase, meaning that they're being reviewed by county staff, and the property owner already has the right under their current zoning district to develop these projects. Though they must be consistent with local and state regulations, they don't require Board of Supervisors approval. And I think something that's particularly relevant for the North CAC area is that large development projects typically develop in phases. So while they're approved conceptually in the rezonings and special use permits, each phase is referred to as a block and is reviewed individually through the site design process. So the entire project, for example, if we look at Brook Hill, the entire development is not happening and going through the site design phase, review phase at the same time. Brook Hill was approved by the Board of Supervisors in November of 2016. And on your screen, you can see there's a mixture of residential, different residential units, as well as non-residential, and there's minimum and maximums for the square footage of non-residential, as well as the dwelling units. This project is approved for a maximum of 1,550 dwelling units, as well as 130,000 square feet of non-residential space. There are several blocks that are under review, but you might be noticing construction for blocks 4 and blocks 8, which are apartment buildings and senior living facilities. And generally the way to read this concept plan is that all of the green space and amenity space is shown in green, and the yellow blobs are neighborhood density or lower density residential units. The orange is higher density, the multifamily units, and then the pink lines and hatching in the center are the mixed use space where there would be the non-residential uses there. And Cameron Langell is the contact, and he has come to this group before to talk about Brook. It is a big project, and if that's ever of interest to the group, I'm sure I can ask him to do that. North Point is another similar project that is larger in scale and would be developed in phases. This was approved back in the early 2000s, I believe, but the most recent plan was approved in 2014 by the board. And the parcels that are affected are outlined in red. It's located along 29 north of Prophet Road, and it's the project is approved to develop a maximum of 893 units, as well as commercial and office space. None of the blocks have been approved to be built so far, and there's a clubhouse under review, as well as subdivision of different parcels and road plans. So this is a good example of a project that has been submitted, and it can take years to develop. So I'm presenting a whole range of projects, but they're not all developing at the same time. And Hollymead, that many of you are familiar with, the town center has also developed over years and was initially approved by the board in 2003 with a more recent amendment in January of 2020. The properties that are outlined in yellow on the screen are the ones that are referred to as Area C in their plan. And those are the areas that are under review currently. Block 2, which is hopefully you can see can use my cursor. This southernmost parcel here is for 60 attached units, 10 attached units in block 3 here, and then block 7 is 33 attached units. So these are attached residential units that are under review currently. And just for the interest of time, and I'll share this presentation with all of you, there are a number of other smaller projects in the area that are currently in various phases of the site design review process. And so I have a list here on this slide and the next. There's, for example, there's 2 townhomes projects on the north and south side of Profit Road, and those are separate projects. A storage facility in Hollymead and a river boat launch, which is a county-led project along Seminole Trail. And a couple others on this screen are a pump station at Rivanna, submitted by Rivanna Sewer and Water Authority, a Sheets on Airport Road, and 2 other UVA projects, just to name a few. But I'm sure that you all might have questions, so I'll stop sharing my screen and I can pull it up. Should that be helpful? I see lots of hands raised. Janelle, go ahead.
I had a question because I'm always at the, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Where Target is? What is that called?
The intersecting street there is Timberwood Boulevard. Is that?
Yeah, so like I was just wondering, and maybe you would know, and if like recently like Panera Bread closed down and the sign says that there is like a senior assistant living going up. So is that something that like they would have had to like reach out to the county to get rezoning? Because that seemed odd to me that that was in the middle of all of the shopping centers there, or is that area like deemed like mixed use with a certain percentage of like residential?
That's a good question. There's a permitted list of uses for each parcel, and I would have to look at that specific example as to whether like assisted living is permitted. But if it is, they go into the county for, if they need to, for a building permit or a certificate of occupancy. But typically if there's not much change and it's a permitted use, that's not something that they go to the county for. It's managed by the development.
Yeah, Michaela, I had a quick question about Willow Glen. You know, the request to increase the density significantly. I wondered, was there any justification that went with that, or did they just come in and say, yeah, we'd like to put more housing units on that property?
They do typically, applications have they have a narrative ahead of their plan itself where they provide written context for this project. I have not read that narrative yet, but that's in their application materials. That's publicly accessible. So it's up to the reader's discretion as to whether that's like a good justification or not. But there is an application narrative that's provided.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, I will send a copy of this presentation.
Yeah, Michaela, I think there was a question from, it's in the chat room. There was a question from,
I see.
yeah, you see that?
Yes, I'm expanding it really quick.
But he's, okay, so that's from Scott. Okay. I thought that was, is that from Scott Elliff? I mean,
Yeah,
is
hey
that-
folks.
Okay.
Am I unmuted at this point?
Well, is that something that is allowed, Michaela? I think so. Well, what do you think?
I think we can, if Scott would like to share information about where folks can access their materials, that's fine. I think since we don't have the applicant present and staff as well about the review of the project to be able to provide different perspectives on it, I would ask that we keep it to, you know, directing folks to where there's information on it and the public hearing that's coming up as well.
So
Yeah.
if Scott has, excuse me, Scott, if Scott has some information, can he, like a letter of concern, can he send it to you and you can send it to us?
Yes.
I'll type in the website where we already have some materials posted on this, but the most important thing is I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of it. Michaela showed a lot of different projects in various stages and so forth. This is a very significant one from our community standpoint. We've done a lot of research and analysis on it. It's troubling to us in a lot of different ways. We'll certainly be very active at the Planning Commission meeting. But, you know, from the standpoint of this group, part of your charter is to look at these projects and how they match or don't match the Places 29 plan, all 340 or is it 430 pages of its glory, and includes things like it's got to be these projects have got to be consistent with or in alignment with or whatever the existing residential nature of this area. And what you'll see in the materials that we've put together is it really is not. It also is a requirement with zoning that you don't cause undue congestion and traffic problems and so forth. Our analysis is that this definitely would, especially put together with the Brook Hill development that Michaela showed there. It's a little complicated, but there's a exit from Brook Hill going north that feeds into Ashwood Boulevard. And this project would feed into Ashwood Boulevard also, that has 850 houses of people that use that as their single exit onto 29. It has environmental issues, it has school issues, it has infrastructure issues.
Scott, I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of interrupt you a little bit here because I don't want us to get in any kind of legal quagmire here, but we of course want to hear what you
Yeah.
and the community has to say. But if you can send that to Michaela can send it to us, but then that way we're not in any kind of a we make sure that
I understand. I just did. It's certainly part of your
Okay.
charter is what I'm saying. I'm trying to kind
Sure.
of get your attention and motivation to focus on it because
Yes.
it's a big deal and it's
Right.
coming up very quickly, and
right.
kind of surprised that it hasn't, come to your attention yet. Your next meeting isn't until after the Planning Commission has already addressed this. And that seems to me to be a little unusual, but in either case, you'll want to get yourselves involved in this because that's sort of what you've been chartered to do, right?
Yeah, this is our second meeting, Scott.
Yeah, I understand.
that's-
Yeah.
And we have
Yeah.
we have basically everybody on here is new.
Yeah,
So
and-
this
and
is our
bl- and
second
bless-
meeting.
Bless you all for being on this. And I know my neighbor Sue Friedman is the newest member, and she's
Yes.
well aware of this also. So she'll work with you as well. And I've been trying to reach out to other groups, the Holly Mead Board and others. So you'll get the materials, but you'll be able to see on the website that I put in there,
Good.
the analysis that we've done and the petitions and other things and where we're planning to go with this.
Yeah, make sure you include your website in any information you send out.
I just did.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Oh, in the chat room, I see.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, yes, thank you.
Scott, it's really kind of important too that you send this to Michaela so that she can forward it on to the committee, or you can send it to myself, which I would forward it on to the staff and the Planning Commission. Items like this, they go before the Planning Commission, then they go on to the board. That's the normal.
Well, we'll be reaching out to the Planning Commission directly on it also, but
Yep.
you all have access to the chat room thing here, right? That's the website right there.
Well, just while they're in this meeting. If they don't get it while they're in this meeting, they can't access it.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Once we close this out, the chat isn't, the only one that's going to see the chat text is going to be me and
Yeah,
Michaela.
So bottom line, Scott, anything you send to Michaela, just put the website on that material.
I think you
Okay.
already have it also, Michaela, but that's fine. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill, did you have, I can't tell if that was, you had your hand raised from previously or something different.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to comment that, yeah, one of the things that when you were going through all the little developments, I think that one of the roles of this committee is to look at all these proposals as a whole, rather than taking them up one at a time, because individually they may not be a problem, but collectively, or it could create a problem with the multiple developments in this very restricted area. That we just have to look at it holistically rather than just one at a time. That's it.
Well, I realize we're at 7:30, and I think in closing, one thing I did want to ask for is a volunteer to help chair the upcoming meeting. We will have the Willow Glen community meeting, which I'm happy to work with the volunteer to explain what that process looks like, but it will be led by staff and the applicant, and we will have community members that are invited to attend and that can speak and ask questions, like Scott was part of the meeting recently. So, Bill, I saw you waving your hand.
Yeah, I'll volunteer for that.
Okay, is someone able to take minutes next month?
Yeah, that would help if somebody else could take minutes, and it just really have to be very brief. Hello. We'll try and work that out in the next. Why don't we try and work that out next week or two? Okay.
Okay, and if anyone has ideas about if anything generated content that you want to talk about next month, we will have the community meeting, but there is probably time for another topic as well. So if you can email Bill in this case, and Bill can pass them on to me, we can coordinate. And Carolyn has kindly helped put together language about motions, etc., because questions came up during our last meeting. So I'll have that guidance for you, Bill, and for anyone in that position in the future. So Jimmy, would you like to adjourn the meeting, and then I can read our last statement about electronic access.
Okay. This being my final meeting, of course, and we're glad everybody had a chance to throw out some ideas and learn something. And is there anything else to come before us at this time? Hearing none, I declare the meeting adjourned.
All right, the next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 11th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And the opportunities for the public to access and participate will be posted at a later date in accordance with emergency ordinance number 20-A16 and open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. So we are, have a good evening.
Michaela, is it possible to get Stacy's a PowerPoint presentation regarding, well, the Rappahannock? And if you have that presentation, all I need is that one screenshot of the Rappahannock line, because I'm having another call with the constituent tonight regarding that.
Oh, from my presentation with the proposal for the the utility.
Yes.
Yes, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, if you could send it to me right after this meeting, just that one screenshot so I could, okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. Have a good evening, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, thank you.
Good night.